celebrate this year's Pride and what it's meant to you. I just want to mention before we get into the discussion that this is taking place in association with the Ally Coalition, which provides critical support to grassroots nonprofit organisations committed to bettering the lives of LGBTQ youth. And if you want to donate, there's going to be a little donate button in the bottom with more information about that. All proceeds will be split between the Ally Coalition and the Grammy Museum. So yeah, let me just start with a very kind of basic question to you guys of, whether, like, what Pride celebrations looked like for you this year and what its significance was to you in a way that is different from years previous. Who wants to take it away?
It's been very kind of like, I guess, like weird for me because like celebration in a weird way, since I'm in the middle of like cycle for my single and record, that a lot of it has just been doing this, like kind of like doing these interviews and like talking to, other queer people in the industry, which, I guess is work per se, but it's also been like really kind of like great too, especially to have like these moments with, other like queer contemporaries. But yeah, other than that, it's kind of been hard to like celebrate like in traditional fashion, which kind of sucks, I must say. It does kind of suck because like I'm relatively young, and the idea of like celebrating Pride is still relatively like new to me. Like I didn't go to like my first Pride till 2016, so it kind of sucks to like have this be like my third, fourth Pride, and like here we are. But we celebrate in our own and in different ways, and we're all adapting.
Yeah, do you think that Pride has kind of become more about, well, obviously it's kind of taken its foundational form as protest this year more than anything else, but I really wanted to get into what the purpose has been for you personally in this year's Pride Month, and how it's kind of taken on this either educational like quality upon yourself or upon educating others, how that's kind of featured in your celebrations, as it were.
I can say for myself that this, I've throughout my music career been walking a journey of discovering myself as a two-spirit person, but also encouraging young Indigenous people to reclaim that tradition. A lot of people think that the two-spirit identity is a new tradition, when in fact it's historic to our ancestors and people, and it's something that's been celebrated in our communities. It has been lost in our communities. But Pride is all about reclaiming that tradition, and especially for young Indigenous people, it's really important to know. And for and someone like me who is out and who gets the opportunity to connect with the Pride community and vocalize who I am, to encourage young Indigenous people that they are exactly who they're supposed to be, and Pride is a great time to acknowledge them and acknowledge their journey and acknowledge who they are and encourage them to grow as two-spirit people. So this month has been, extremely powerful to do that. We've kind of had to figure out different ways to do that because we don't get the Pride together hand in hand, normal celebration especially. It's a big time for me to share my music and get out at Pride events throughout Canada and USA. But, connecting on community with social media and connecting with opportunities like this, it's, really important.
No.
All of us were like, "Who?"
That was great. I'm actually quite interested, like, given both of the contributions that have been made so far, what all of your experiences have been of Pride in years previous, or like your first Prides, and the difference in the way that you have experienced it. We have such a, you know, diverse group of people here. And I think it's really interesting talking about sort of, you know, looking inwards at our own spaces and figuring out how they can elevate a multitude of voices, because I think that's something that we've been talking about in the past few years with the sort of worry that comes with the co-opting of pride by, you know, the white cis world, the white cis straight world, I should say, also, and how this kind of crazy opportunity this year has allowed a proliferation of like nuanced voices and nuanced pride.
I know personally for me, my experience with coming out was so off the cuff, and I think it was it was a couple years ago. It sort of felt like it was at what felt like the inception of the concept of like press and media jumping on pride as something to use to, you know, as, you know, like clickbait or to broaden audience or to show solidarity in a way that was also magnifying the voice of whatever publication. And a lot of it felt very much like taking part in the piggybacking of something that a lot of people have dealt with, you know, with great struggle for so long. So, you know, I've always tried to approach the subject from a place of like understanding how much my privilege has played a role in my sexuality, in my identity, and in my acceptance of myself, and therefore the way that I can then express my sexuality or speak about my sexuality. And this year I've had a really difficult time engaging with publications in the same way in regards to pride, and really felt like I haven't felt this year like it was particularly inspiring to engage in conversations about pride, especially in light of you know, the civil rights movement that's taking place here, and just really feeling like taking up space with my own voice was reductive to the conversation. So I've tried to take part so much less so in the actual conversation, and so much more so in listening to the conversation. And that's, I think, the way that my role has changed this year, more so than ever before, where maybe as I felt like, you know, I wanted to be a voice or a seat at the table, this year has been so much more about what I can learn from others, not just about myself, but about this community that I identify with.
Yeah, that was very well said. Thank you. And on that note about kind of learning learning about others, like I wondered if we could kind of go into a bit of what kind of, you know, what have you learned during this year that was new to you? Like maybe this is more of a question for, you know, white allies at the moment than it is for the Black community, but, you know, or even it could be a question for both, in the sense of kind of what conversations have been enlightening or have been particularly powerful that have had the opportunity of space this year, that have been kind of like muffled by the more generalist concept of pride in years before.
Yeah, can I go?
Of course.
Like I know for me, a big thing that like I've been learning and just like being really conscious of now is kind of like piggybacking off of Donna. Like in the past, I've always been like, okay, we're kind of skeptical towards a lot of like publications, especially around pride, and doing features and doing the like 12 LGBTQ plus artists talk about Thanksgiving, like stuff like that. And I was always like, I don't know if I'm down with that. And like feel, I think I'm just like within the context of the Black Lives Movement, just like especially even more aware of like kind of like where you're taking up space, where you can maybe step aside and leave somebody else's voice to come forward, and like being like extremely conscious of the intentions of like what you're being asked to be like featured for or asked to talk about or featured in, and just making sure like if there are other voices that should be elevated rather than mine, like when is it okay to step back and when is it okay to step forward, and like just kind of being more conscious of that moving forward and how to kind of integrate that into just moving forward from here on out. Like basically how to like do that responsibly, I guess, and like when to know when you need to step back and when it is okay to be stepping in and being a part of the conversation. But yeah, just kind of being trying to like really be reflective and aware of that and like the contexts that you can be doing that or not doing that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we've spoken about, as a community, we've spoken about it a lot in the past couple of years of kind of being pigeonholed as queer, before being able to even discuss the art that is the reason for even kind of being a presence in the space, and how it's, it takes up too much time to talk about queerness, and then, proportionally actually so much less time to actually discuss the art itself and this constant frustration that exists. And I wondered if maybe this year, because there were so many conversations coming to the fore that are fundamental, and the communities are taking their power back and really having fought to be listened to for so long, that kind of it's starting a little bit to get through to people that they need to listen more. Do you think that now is an opportunity to push back at the media and to push back at the kind of, the homogenous music industry folks and say, actually, no, I'm not comfortable doing this and I'm not comfortable being marketed as this? Do you think that now feels powerful in a way that didn't before, perhaps? I don't know. Putting it out there.
That's something that I've always kind of made sure I've been cognizant of, which I think, we've talked about this before, is that like there's been so many preconceived notions of like what I was supposed to be as an artist from the beginning of my career. And I think the whole struggle of my career is basically coming back and being like, no, like I'm going to tell you who I am, because I think that within itself is just such a powerful act, especially as a Black queer person like myself, where, we're not seen, we're seen as victims most of the times. And it's exactly. Rare. Yeah. And it's rare that you see, a Black queer person doing what they want when they want, how they want, and telling the industry that you're going to mold to that. And I've had so much pushback from that, but at the end of the day, I think people respond to that because it's just something that they've never seen. I think it's really, really powerful because I never got to see that. I look back at like some of the, some of like the Black queer people throughout history that I looked up to, like, Simone and Sister Roosevelt Tharpe, and how they're hailed now, but their story ended in tragedy. Mm-hmm. And I just said to myself, I refuse. I refuse. I can't be that for a whole nother generation of people that looked up to me. And I think that's also been kind of like one of the big things of me kind of just like coming back into the public eye more than I have in the last few years, and like actually doing an album cycle and stuff, because I think that's important.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, can I even just to focus on the way that you've done this for a second, ask you about sort of, the independent nature by which you've come back. It must have been extremely scary, but also, very empowering, because you have just completely rejected the system and the industry that exists and proven that you can do this at a grassroots level. Would you encourage other artists, marginalized artists to do it this way?
Yeah, you deserve to be here and your voice matters, and the industry will tell you that otherwise, but I think it's really important for artists to know that. And, you know, being an artist who has been independent since 2012 when I released my single, even though it was released on Not Decent, I had to independently support myself, and it was really difficult for me to find the support of management and team within the industry, and the support from the media, because it was really hard to be celebrated as a queer Black person by, you know, non-Black media, because they were too busy thinking of our hardships and pointing out our hardships instead of celebrating where we've been and what we've done and how far we've come as independent artists that don't have a major backing and don't have a label supporting them. And, like, you know, speaking with media about being Black and queer is very difficult, especially if they are not Black, because I just feel like I'm always talking in a circle or being really redundant, trying to express myself or trying to identify in a way which I feel comfortable so I can present myself to the world. But yeah, I just think this pride, being in Berlin and just releasing my debut album on March 20th independently and doing vinyl with Vinyl Factory, it has been very challenging, but I gladly accept the challenges, because the only way that we can learn is by doing. And if we can't find individuals within the community that are genuinely there to help and support us, then you have to support yourself. And, like, I think one thing I've learned, that you have to create these venues for yourself, and you have to, you know, learn what it is about being someone who self-distributes. And, you know, that it's nice to just have a friend pretend to be your manager, because if you go directly to these major corporations that only message you when it's Pride, and, you know, now because it's the COVID season and it's also Black Lives Matter, it's an added plus to be brown and queer. You know, I have to start asking, you know, when do I start, you know, charging or questioning the media's sudden interest in what it is I do. And that's something that I've always questioned since I've been in this industry. And I don't think the media has made it any less easier for me since. But there's something that I had to prove, and there's something that I needed to prove only to myself, that you can continue to do this, you know. And I shipped my latest release to many labels and to a lot of people who publicly present as being individuals that want to support communities and marginalized individuals, but, you know, they didn't bite, or it wasn't for them, or, you know, I was speaking about Black politics or what it's like to be Black and queer within the industry. And, you know, before March 20th, those topics weren't really of interest, you know. But now that, you know, everyone has renewed faith and, like, caring about racism and civil rights, now it matters. So, you know, being an independent artist who paid press, for example, $20,000 to promote a very Black album right before a COVID crisis didn't really pan out. Now I'm getting messages from these PR people, which I find somewhat conflicted, like, you know, problematic, saying, oh, now everyone gets the album and people really support. And they're not saying that we're helping, we want to do something to contribute to your cause and what you're doing. They're just saying, well, people get it now. So it's been a really difficult time to, like, be independent and feel supported in my community and outside my community. But in Berlin, for example, where I am, there was a queer pride parade and also Black Lives Matter demonstration on the same day. And I just thought it was really, you know, unfortunate that any of the people organizing couldn't join these two demonstrations together. But I think it's just important to let other artists know, especially marginalized artists, that you matter and you deserve to be here and your voice matters. And no matter the fight, just, you know, keep going. And I think that's what I really wanted to express within of this. And it's a lot. It's heavy, but, you know, we have each other, and I think we need to remind each other constantly that we can be there for each other. Or if Shamir wanted to reach out to me to get a benchmark for, you know, a sync or a broadcasting thing, because we don't have a team of people around us to give us those numbers, that I will be there to bounce off and, like, support you, because I know how difficult it is to be independent. And, like, I'm down to see you win, and I'm down to see everyone win, because it is difficult. So
Yeah.
that's kind of.
And that's off of that too as well. It's great. It's great to hear that from you as well. It's, like, very comforting to, like, know that, like, you know, a lot of people are like, oh, so cool that you're independent, that's, like, so punk and, like, badass. while I do like being as DSY as possible, it's a necessity. I've yet to find someone in the industry that knows how to properly, not saying that wants to, that knows how to properly work with and market a Black queer artist. I've yet to see not a single person in the industry.
I've worked with 3 managers who've all said, you know, you're the new wave of artists that I don't know how to really work and manage. And, you know, they ask you questions like, who do you want to be like? What artist do you aspire to be like? I'm going to help you be like that. And it's like, what are your credentials? And like, do you actually, like, are you listening to what it is I'm saying? Like, you know, or are you just playing the game because you want to be there to support me? So like, I shouldn't have to constantly question the people that are there to help me with these questions when I'm just trying to be an artist and get the work out there. So yeah, I'm here for you. I get it. It's difficult. And yeah, just keep going. You know, that's all we have right now. And you have my support. Fully.
Amazing. I think also to what you're saying, you know, there's this desire to kind of market based on a previous premise or something, and isn't the whole point that we're trying to progress and to insert new voices and to move into a future that, you know, where representation is greater of things that have not, you know, identities that have not been represented before. The whole point is that there isn't a precedent for, you know, for a lot, and we need creativity and we need to really listen to people. Mike, I'm kind of like, and not to put the spotlight on you, but as somebody who has also kind of been, you know, openly queer in the space of music for, I don't know, a decade plus right now, have you noticed an evolution, and have you felt more able to trust the way that you are presented when you deal either internally with your team or when you're talking to the media? Do you feel like it's changed? I don't know what's going on with your mic.
Is that me? Was that my win?
No, it's not you.
It was the win.
Lynn's just put her laptop right next to the AC unit. You know.
I don't know how much has changed, to be honest. I don't feel like anything has happened. It's what people want to talk about or feel more comfortable talking about at the time. It's not like things haven't been going on. I think when I released Queen, people were always asking me, why are you being so political? Why did you make a political record, you know, about being queer when things are supposed, you know, seemingly better for you, you know? And then I released another record a few years later and they asked me why I wasn't being political, you know, because of the current climate and stuff like that. And, it's, you know, things have been shitty for hundreds of years. So, I don't know.
I hear you. I mean, what are some of the, I know this is such a broad question, but this year in particular has been thinking about Pride, and this is a general question to everyone, you know, what are some of the things that you feel you would really like to see changing, not outside of the community, but within the community, perhaps?
For me, I would like to see every young person at whatever age they are, whether it be 2 or 5 or 6 or 15 or 16, be able to come out and when they discover themselves, you know, part of the LGBTQ2 community plus, to feel proud, to look in the mirror and to feel proud to tell their parents, proud to tell their friends, proud to tell their teachers, and celebrate who they are without any sense of shame or, you know, I want them to feel powerful with that. And I would hope for that in the future, no matter what walk they come from, no matter what race they are, no matter who raised them. It's my hope, and it's why I feel such a sense of responsibility to, you know, fly my flag as a Two-Spirit person, because my voice speaks out to those young people, and it tells them that you matter, and you are who you are supposed to be, and you're meant to be here, and you're meant to be proud of who you are. So be that, you know, which is why a lot of the time, even when I'm, you know, participating in engagement that's not spoken in any way, or I'm not performing or singing, I'll wear the Two-Spirit flag or something to tell young people that I'm proud of who I am, and you should be too.
I think that in just like going off of what you're saying about this ability to feel accepted, like without fear, I think that has to come from education, and it has to start at a young age. And I think that the queer community does a lot of communication like within a vacuum and within a bubble, and I think that it's been out of like preservation, and because of the lack of inclusion towards this community that's existed for so long. But I think taking advantage of the shifting tide, at least seeing, you know, I think obviously not to like reduce what Mike is saying at all about the fact that like things truly have such a long way to go, and at points it really does feel like we haven't made much progress at all. I think that if we could start by refocusing maybe some of our collective voice, some of our attention on educating young people and preparing them for the future that we want to all see, which is inclusive, which provides an education about where these things started and why they exist, and the struggle that took place to get us to this point. And I've been spending a lot less time focused on the vacuum that is the community, and so much more time at least trying to focus some of that energy on educating younger people who have a willingness to learn and have, you know, the right to know and understand, so that they're shaping the world that we all want future generations to live in. I definitely don't mean to be like cynical about our, you know, the world that we all exist in and that we all came up in, but like it's an ugly, scary world for so many people. And I have had the privilege of not having to experience the world that way. The world has been open and accepting to me, and I'm just learning that that's not the case for most people, and we don't want it to be this way, right? And so I think the queer community we're armed with the passion and the information. It's now, I think, our responsibility to teach young people about acceptance, inclusion, and it really, you know, it starts with education. So that's what I would like to see, and I think if that were to be led by the queer community, I think that would be really inspiring to be a part of.
Yeah, I think as we continue to shout about, you know, the prejudice of our institutions, be them, you know, political, educational, social, we are looking at grassroots level education, right? And we're looking at the power of social media. And I think for so many years we've been talking very critically about social media, but to me it seems to be having like an absolute, you know, golden moment right now. There's a lot that's difficult about it, and a lot that cannot be reduced to this small space that we have, but we are seeing how powerful it is galvanizing allyship by using these platforms. And I wondered if anyone kind of feels like speaking to how even like kind of on a personal interactive basis they found that to be true, if indeed they have. Oh, you're on mute. Sorry.
I'm muted.
Here we go.
Can you hear me now? Yeah, I just hope that this renewed strength in social media and digital activism has some resolve, and that people actually, sign petitions, go out and vote, demonstrate if you have to. But I just wanted to go further than posting a black square, because that shit was whack. And I appreciate it. But now going back to seeing selfies of everyone, it's really difficult for me as an artist of color to figure out how to engage. And do I want to post selfies and photos, or do I want to, push the album, or do I want to just give the space for the artists? And I think that's what I want to see. I'm really happy that the queer community is progressing, and I'm really happy that we may have a new flag that is inclusive of, everyone, no matter your color, race, and background. And I think that's what we just need to be mindful of, and we need to continue that. And if it's anything I've learned recently, it's just to give the platform that I built to those who need it most. And, for example, Absolute asked me to do a ballroom track, and I said, there are ballroom artists you can reach out to. Here are their names. You reach out to these artists. Here is their community. If you don't have a direct link to that community, I will be that link for you. But that's my moment to kind of step down and give someone else an opportunity to have their voice be heard. And I think if I've learned anything within the last 4 months, it's now my time to do that. And that's kind of all I could do from where I am. I wish I was in the States and I was able to go out there and be on the streets. And, I would, leave music around or leave music behind right now so I could focus on politics, because I think it is that important. And, that's just kind of where I've been in the last 4 months. And I just want to see more progress, and I want to see the youth, get mad, be angry. You should be. People have been fucking angry for generations now. So, I am thankful that people are waking up, and I just hope that, the alarm clock continues to ring, so to say.
Yeah. Totally.
And I also want to say that I think it should, this time, I'm not sure if I like to see everything that's going on to be viewed as a movement. I think it needs to be seen as the beginning steps of completely rewiring. And I think that's where the real change lies, this energy needs to be kept up far after this, far after at least, the major conversation these things should be integrated into people's lives, and the funny thing is, piggybacking off of what Zebra said, I don't do ballroom, but I am Black and queer, and no other Black and queer people that do ballroom, so I'm not going to do that. And the fact that, people that is, so high on the
ballroom wave.
Well, I guess just been just as oppressed as us too, that makes us more aware of not stepping on toes and knowing our place, because the world has shown us our place so much, and that's already just instilled in us, and that therefore that needs to extend to everyone, because I've seen so many people with way more privilege than me that would do that ballroom track, because the opportunity has been given to me. Why wouldn't I do it? And it's just
and it's really hard to have opportunities as a minority or marginalized artist, so why not take it? And when will the next one come? And I think that's something that we also have to be mindful of. And if it's not me, it's 3 of the other queer rappers that would jump into this genre. So, that's another thing I know. If I don't do this ad, it's going to go to these 2 other artists. I just hope that they know that this was the benchmark price, so they don't get lowballed because another artist didn't. And it's, it's been that way since my career began. And I'm just mindful of it now, and I just want to play the game so I'm not getting played.
Yeah. Shamir, you made a really, you were making that point about how we can't just view this as a moment, because we have to view this as the beginning of, rewiring the world that we live in. And something that, I wanted to just touch upon briefly too is the fact that we are living in this pandemic right now. And also being mindful of expressing pride towards ourselves in the sense of kind of trying to ready ourselves to be able to sustain the longevity of this fight and to really implement these changes. And I wondered, as a silver lining in some of this, what are some of the ways in which you have empowered yourselves during this time to keep you motivated, because it is hard. Like every day, for a multitude of reasons, is difficult and and tiring. It's tiring work, learning, unlearning, advocating, being online, being in the world, being out in the streets protesting, all of it. Yeah.
I guess I'll say that, like, the big thing for me that just, like, is so great is just kind of, like, the community that I've built around myself, and, like, knowing that, seeing the change that I've done and just, like, daydreaming and imagining the change that could be done is when, the rest of the people that I've worked with and both was, like, also on the same level. Like, I just started my label, and I have 3 artists that I've released as of now, and 2 of them are white and cis, but one of them is Black, non-binary, queer, like myself, and they're the most popular artists on the label, and, like, that, to me, really warms my heart, and it's, like, really great. And I've always wanted to extend my platform as much as I can, and as much that makes sense. And seeing the growth, from that, of this platform, and seeing, getting, like, demos from Black and queer people, because, like, they know that, like, oh, Lee Shamir will listen to me, or Lee Shamir will, like, get me and everything, and, like, expanding on that, like, that gives me so much hope, and, like, that makes me so happy, and that really makes me feel like that I'm intrinsically a part of that rewiring, and actually doing my part. I think a lot, especially when it comes to social media activism, I may not be the loudest, but I see myself as a change agent. I'm in there, in the industry, in these streets, doing what I can, like, being the loudest it's great, people see it and people start to think, but things have to be done. And I'd rather be the one that has to be done, instead of trying to position myself as an activist. Like, I don't even like to think of myself as an activist. I just wanted to change.
Yeah, I relate to that a lot. It's this people. I mean, there are people obviously who choose to be activists, but I don't know that it's most of us. Especially if we're working in the arts, because we love to kind of spread joy and not be combative, and suddenly it's and there's also this fear that if you use combat in your voice, that people are going to think that you're kind of reneging on your desire to spread joy and hope. I think that that's actually quite a difficult dichotomy. I don't know if anyone else feels that way.
I know I've been seeing a lot of things, just people being like, also, like, keep in mind, like, just sharing your art and sharing your light and sharing joy can also be, like, a form of activism. And like, I think there is also, like, seeing a lot of, like, okay, kind of going back to your question about, like, how do you keep this like, lifelong, and how do you have longevity with this, is, like, kind of really focusing on, like, all right, where are your strong points? Are you more of a voice? Are you more of a facilitator? Are you more of, like, just kind of, like, dancing through it? I don't know, like, what I know that's been just, like, I think just focusing on, like, maybe you're not, like, the poster child, like, what people think an activist needs to be, and, like, what does that mean to you, and what other roles could there be that could be doing just as much, maybe just in different lanes and different compartments within trying to keep the conversation going and trying to keep things moving forward. That makes sense.
Yeah,
I love that, Lindsay.
Yeah, no, I really relate to that. Donna and Shawnee mentioned kind of coming out itself, and sort of you know, the like understanding pride in that moment. And I wondered if any of you kind of wanted to speak on the things that you would have wanted to be able to tell yourself at that moment now, you know, about how you've been able to move past the difficulty of that time.
It was like so long ago.
Did you come out young, Donna?
You know, because I mean, my family's just like, you know, like what, you know, like it was just,
Yeah.
no, it was just like, here's my boyfriend in school, like here we are, you know,
Yeah.
want a sandwich, like, so I don't know. I think not to say that I never had that normal anxiety around my disability, but I guess never really given the privilege of being quote unquote stealth. I don't know if that's the right word. But like, you know, passing for normal, I think I'm kind of like, I guess lucky in that way too. I kind of see it as a blessing because I've kind of constantly had to face these things going forward my whole life. As far as just like, again, establishing myself to other people how I view myself. And I think that has been a big thing behind, again, as I mentioned earlier, me, or how I established myself in the industry early on, and how I was just like, you're not going to tell me who I am, because I never had anyone tell me who I am, you know, like I never tried to have myself perceived as anything other than who I always perceived myself as. So.
Makes sense. I never had like a proper coming out to family or anything because I just had the privilege of environment being like insulated. I was homeschooled, you know, higher education. And what's that?
Which I think should be the future, you know.
That would be
And
ideal.
I'm glad that you said it's a privilege, because I do truly feel that coming out from us is a privilege to be able to have that comfort and protection from your family, and to know that you're not going to get kicked out and that you're not going to have to live on with peers. So like, I think it's great to acknowledge that, and I think you can come out at whatever time you need to, but as long as you're living your truth and you're doing the best thing to like make yourself live a healthy life where you're not like self-deteriorating, and I think that's the way to go. Like, I was outed by the media more so because I never had the privilege to come out to my family. You know, they're Caribbean. It's not okay.
Right.
And until I could show them, like, that I had a partner and this is what a true relationship is like, then it's going to be very difficult for me to explain that to my family. So, yeah, I just am really thankful that you did, you know, acknowledge it as a privilege. And I think, you know, as long as you can live in your truth and be proud about who you are and where you are in the world, like, that's most important.
Yeah, no, I just think it's become more and more obvious to me as I've moved through life that so many things that have been afforded to me are not afforded to others. And learning about that is like, it can, the initial reaction to that can feel like you're being attacked. And if you can just approach these things with more humility and humanity and understanding and the willingness to be wrong and the willingness to be corrected by peers, it's been really, I think, really healthy, like my experience in coming out and also experiencing how others have had to come out and move through the world. But I think if there were one thing that I could tell myself when I made my first like public declaration of like who I thought I was at that time was like, you really at the end of the day, like, and I think all of us can attest to this more than anyone, that we really do exist on such a spectrum, and you don't have to identify as anything if that doesn't feel right. Like, if I could go back now, I would tell myself, like, you don't have to give yourself a word to explain to others who you are, because it ends up feeling really reductive, because at the end of the day, like, bisexuality is it is reductive to who I am and to my experiences with others and to the way that I feel about my sexuality and how I interact with others through my sexuality. Like, I think that we're moving towards this just less and less of a need to say like, this is how I identify, like I'm gay, and more so just this general understanding that queerness exists on a like this huge spectrum, and you can sort of fall anywhere within this spectrum, and it should be considered just as acceptable as the next, and totally healthy and totally normal. So
Yeah.
if I could go back and say like, you don't have to tell that magazine like I'm bi, and now reading about myself, you know, for years now as bi, she's bi, she's bi, she's bi, and it's like a part of every public statement that's made about me, regardless of if the publication has any emphasis on sexuality. So I would just tell myself to not fall into the trap, because it's not necessary.
It is a trap.
It's a trap.
Can I just say R.I.P. to Little Richard for being the pioneer of like language and identity, and like being like a pioneer in the music world and not really getting the flowers he deserved when he was alive. And I just think back to Little Richard and his work, and how in the early 70s or the 60s we didn't even have the language to discuss a lot of the things that Little Richard was doing. And I just think that it must have been such a trying and difficult time for him as an individual who was so flamboyant and over the top living in that world when we didn't have the language to describe that. So yeah, it just really hit me hard, his passing this year. And yeah, props to him. You're a legend and an icon, and I appreciate you, and I'm sure we all do. So I just need to say that as well, because yeah, he's a pioneer.
I love that.
Same, like I think Lower Truth was
It.
just period, you know, just the first all of it. You know, I see myself in this, you know. And yeah, so thank you for saying that. I definitely agree, and I want to.
I saw this amazing interview with him recently, you know, when he passed. I like just sort of went down the YouTube rabbit hole is so deep for Little Richard. It's like an amazing place. Like go down that hole. But this interviewer, he was pretty blatantly asked about his lifestyle, which I think everyone can like equate to, you know, being asked like, what, you know, are you gay? Without, you know, because like you said, the language wasn't available and it wasn't accepted and whatever it was. But he's just like, I'm Little Richard. What else do you need to know? I'm fabulous. It's just the most iconic answer to something that truly should not be on the table, should not be up for discussion, and shouldn't change the way that anyone views you or your work or your art.
Yeah, here. We have just a little bit of time left, so I'm just going to ask you one final question, and you know, it's not even pride related really, but it's just, I know it's kind of such a weird, discombobulating, challenging time to be putting music out in the world, especially music that did not recognize that we were going to be in the current status quo. But I wondered if the pandemic and being in lockdown and everything that is going on has given you a different relationship with your role as an artist, and has kind of enlightened you in some way about your voice and how you use it, and even just music in itself and how it speaks to you, and how it's given you some kind of, I know this word keeps getting used a lot at this time, salve at the moment, you know?
I think music is medicine. I believe that music is medicine, and as artists, you know, we can use that power that we have in any capacity, whether it be to help somebody feel empowered or inspired or happy, or maybe they need, you know, to be able to relate in some way. Maybe maybe there's something sad that they want to feel like they're not alone in the world. Music is medicine, and it can be there, and it can connect people, and it's such a powerful tool. Art is such a powerful tool to connect the world and connect people, and even sometimes this unspoken language. So again, as an artist, I just feel this sense of responsibility to create right now, create for things, you know, that matter to me, that are going on in the world, and all the change that's happening, and all the young people who need it. They need to pick me up. They need to know that they're okay, even though there's hard times happening right now, and there's lots of change happening, that music can heal, and music can be there for you and can connect us.
Great. Thank you. Anyone else? Everyone was kind of like nothing and talking.
I have an album coming out, and I worked on it over the last couple of years, like in between touring, and then really put it together and like recorded everything super quick in the couple of months prior to going on tour, where I opened for an artist in arenas in the UK, which looking back now is like I had to leave the tour early because basically went from playing, for over a month playing in these arenas, opening for this artist, to then like being home in lockdown and preparing for putting out a record in a way that, I mean, I've only put one record out before, but I had all of the opportunities that you would hope that you have when promoting a record, like doing a radio promo tour, having like proper press set it up, doing like just like the classic rollout structure for that you hope to have, around a record release. And this one's obviously going to be super different. And it's not a political record, man. It just isn't. Like it's about my own very personal experience with like ending a long relationship and feeling like I ruined my life or something. And that's what I wrote about. And so in deciding to continue the release plan and still put this body of work out, I mean, I've lost a lot of sleep over it because, you have to face these really difficult questions of like, does anyone need to hear this right now, or am I just taking up space, No,
Donna, totally not. Sorry to interrupt, but I want to tell you that you're not. Like, I believe like your path, what you've lived and what you've experienced in your life with love and loss and all of that, people need to hear. Like, people need to hear you. There are people that I know that look up to you and want to know what you have to say and what your experience is. Like, that will help someone in these times. We're all going through different walks right now, and you definitely should feel proud of what you've created. I just want to tell you that.
I appreciate that. That's really kind. But of course, to believe that from the inside out when you're, on the other side of the table about to push something across, like, I made this. I hope it does anything. Like, I think I've come to the realization that my capitalist agenda that I had around this record that was so ingrained, that felt so natural and normal, this idea that like, I want as many people to hear it as possible. I want this to grow my fan base as much as possible. And I want to be bigger than I was last year. I want to make more money. I want to travel more places. I want to have bigger shows. I want to sell more shit. Like that was my genuine agenda going into like, after I had made this record, thinking about how I wanted to roll it out. I'm just as honest as I can be. Like those were my plans. And I think in the last few weeks, I'm actually really, really grateful to be in the midst of this experience, this very humanizing experience where I can say like, I think the concept of putting something out for anyone that's already in my community or anyone who wants to hear this or needs to hear this, like I'm fine with that. I feel good about that. It doesn't need to be about growth. It doesn't need to be like, this is the most important body of work I'm ever going to make and everyone needs to hear it. I don't need to sell a lot of records. I won't be able to tour it for a long, long time. So I'm just coming to terms with all of that and realizing that maybe it's like exactly what I needed to happen right now, because you can get really caught up in the agenda of just wanting to be, as big as possible. And sometimes that's just like not what the environment is calling for. And I'm feeling really, really grateful that I can still put this thing out, that I still have community support, but that I'm getting a little kick in the ass to say like, slow the fuck down and don't worry so much about being marketable. Just like put your shit out and like keep it moving. I'm like, it was a hard time coming to that conclusion, but that's where I'm at now, and I feel a lot healthier about it.
Do you feel like it kind of helped you get back to like, oh wait, this is my intention with making music, and like this, it helps you get to just like the root?
Absolutely. It reminded me what the record is even about, which is catharsis, like, which is what I need. That I listen to music for that reason. So yeah, absolutely. It really recentered like my goals and help me like come back to like my purpose, which is just to express and to share.
Yeah. Mike, I'm just like laughing because I remember when we did our interview pre-COVID, like maybe just a month before lockdown and everything went on. I remember you saying that you were waiting for something really big to happen and you wanted it to happen right now, and I don't think you were planning on this.
Not this. That's been really strange. I mean, but putting the record out, I could feel the outside world again. You know what I mean? Like even in this car, I've been very heavy, been very internal. You know what I mean? It's been a weird time. But having the music out and feel like I could feel people listening to it, and I felt connected to them. And all I've been doing is listening to music, and it's been soothing that specific loneliness, you know, almost like a prescription. I'm just like searching all over for what song is going to soothe wherever I'm at. And the idea that I could, and I always make music intending for that, my songs to be that for people. So be able to feel that a little bit was really powerful.
Amazing. Well, I'm going to have to let you all go because we're at the end of this hour.
No.
This has been really tremendous, and you know, I'm so proud genuinely to be on a Zoom recorded video with you guys for the Grammy Museum, talking about these things, and I just really thank you all for your contributions and for your time and for your music, because it's incredible and it keeps us going. And yeah, just so much love to all of you, and to all of the viewers. Remember that you can donate to the Grammy Museum and the Ally Coalition, and happy Pride.
Happy
Feel
Pride.
free to reach out to us if you need or have any questions about traversing the queer music landscape. We're here. Like, we're on social media. Reach out to us. We're here for you. You deserve to be here. Black Lives Matter and all that jazz. Thanks for having me.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye, guys.
Bye, guys.
Bye.